fact is that February is World Understanding Month. The month of February is a very special in the Rotary calendar since it is designated World Understanding Month. The month also includes the anniversary of the first meeting of Rotary held on February 23rd, 1905, now designated World Understanding and Peace Day. World Understanding Month is a chance for every Rotarian to pause and promote the Fourth Avenue of service, Rotary's continued quest for goodwill, peace, and understanding among people of the world. I would like to thank Mary Jo Jamie and Greg Farrell for bringing us together via Zoom today. Now, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I would like to turn it to Doug Busby for our invocation. Doug?
One of the things that we are constantly faced with, and it's increasing internationally, and that is the challenges in what to know, what to do. In keeping with Rotary's, what we call an invocation, is now being turned into a thought for the day, a thought for the time. And so I'd like to read a poet's view of the challenges that face us, the understandings that we try to gain. The poet is Wendell Berry, and the title of the poem is The Real Work. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. Like an impeded stream, the mind sings. Being baffled means that we are puzzled and perplexed, not knowing what to do. But together we may find courage to ask deeper questions, to delight in wonder, to exercise curiosity, and to joyfully come together in the work of our minds. May you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests joining us today? Okay, a couple of announcements. No, I'm sorry, Sergeant at Arms. I'm sorry, Steve, here you go.
It's okay, Dawn. I know you've heard from me the last couple of weeks from an invocation standpoint. You're like, are we done with this schlub or what? Trust me, after today, you'll be done with me for a while. So welcome, everybody. Happy Monday to everybody. If you have any good news, all you have to do is either type the words good news into the chat box and I'll call on you, or even better, just unmute yourself and start screaming. Who's got good news for the group today? Going once. Going twice.
This is Deb.
I have good news.
Go ahead, Deb first. You go, Deb. And then
well, the good news is that our club is sponsoring Boy Scout Troop, and I was just looking up the number, and I'm not gonna be able to have it for you, but Andrew Lucas, I think you're on the call. Yes, I see you there. I think Andrew was the lead on the troop. Somehow I have become a Boy Scout troop leader, whatever the title is. The troop that we sponsor found itself in a situation where paperwork had to be completed by us very, very quickly. So I completed the paperwork, and then I did the background check, and then I had to do an application, only to find out that I think I'm one of the leaders. So I'm not going to be one of the leaders, guys. Do we have an Eagle Scout or a former Boy Scout in Rotary that would be willing to take on this role with the Boy Scout troop? Working with Randy, Odeski,
Hey,
Is it-
Deb, do you mind if I throw in my 2 cents here?
please.
Okay, so here's what Deb's talking about. The Boy Scouts need a charter organization, or in other words, a local group that their charter runs through. When Dodrell was a member, he just took care of this. So for years and years and years, we were the charter group and didn't even realize it. When we removed Roger during my presidency, the Boy Scouts contacted me, and I just did it for the first year, not realizing what all was involved. And then once I was done with my presidency, I handed it off to the youth committee. So that's the history of how we get here. And for the record, Deb, when I did it, I didn't go to any meetings or do anything. I basically filled out the charter paperwork. And then that was the extent of my involvement. But that's the history and the background on it. And I guess the question, one, is anybody doing it? And then the question, maybe the question before that is it something the club still wants to be involved in? Yes.
Well, that is the question. And if it is, I need a sub chair to help with this. I will tell you that when I completed the paperwork and had to do the training, which was not extensive, but it came right before Christmas, and it was, I realized it was the reason that they have an organization like us is to oversee and make sure that these kids are protected. And that was a big part of the training. Well, as part of the training, then I felt that I don't know this Randy, I'm vouching for him. I didn't feel comfortable signing and then taking all this responsibility on behalf of Rotary and just saying, okay, I'm done. I did ask for a meeting with him so that I could meet with him. And there are rules that he has to follow with these kids in terms of, if they're, no one adult is there have to be 2 adults. Well, I wanted to make sure that these sort of things were happening. So I did ask for a meeting, and the response I got was, now their group has their Zoom meeting, the troop does tonight, and I would like to, or somebody to sit in on that meeting, but I don't want to just be an organization, at least I don't feel comfortable with this signing all the paperwork and saying we're overseeing, and then I walk away and say, okay, you guys just do whatever you want to do. I want to see a little more oversight there. And I think it can be what we want it to be. We just need to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. And I just need somebody to step up that would be willing to do that. You can call me. You can email me.
I
Thanks,
have an
Deb.
executive committee meeting after this, so we'll talk through it and then we'll see if we can find somebody to help.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks for bringing that to everybody's attention. Meenakshi, you're next, and then James on deck. What do you got, Meenakshi? That's exciting stuff.
I already put it on chat that I'm getting my second shot this Friday.
Good job.
Terrific news. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. That's great. James, you've got some big news for those folks who aren't familiar or comfortable reading the chat. James, would you mind announcing your Lakeshore Public Media news to the rest of the group?
Oh, I certainly don't mind that. Yes, we're recently named as finalists for 2 National Public Media Awards. These are national awards, highly competitive. Which, if you can become a finalist, it says that you're one of the best in the system. So we're really happy about that. Also, for our work recently, we received a nomination for a Chicago Emmy. Again, that goes up against all the big dogs in Chicago. So really proud of that. We take no credit here. It all goes back to the community. It's the stories that we share from this community that people find as worthy of national recognition. So and also regional. So that's a success. You know, we all share in that.
Fantastic. Those big dogs don't stand a chance against Lakeshore, James.
They do not.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well done. Well
Look
done.
like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Amen. Amen. Anybody else got some good news? Anybody else?
Steve, I have
Hey,
some.
Sharon, what do you got?
Hi, my good news was the last 2 weekends, I was involved in Rotary Leadership Institute. That was a zone institute. So it was Kentucky and I don't know, there were people from probably 5 or 6 states. And I just want to encourage anybody, they do these once or twice a year and the information was great. It cost $20. Didn't have to go anywhere. They did it for 3 hours on 2 Saturday mornings. So I have stuff that I will make available to committee chairs if they would like them on foundation stuff and membership and service projects. And I just thought it was very good. And I would encourage people because it really, it was 3 hours and their technology was amazing. I mean, it was great. So if you have the chance later on, watch sometimes for what you get from the district because you can sign up at the district website and it was excellent.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing, Sharon. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Good news. Good news. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, then, folks, I just want to remind everybody that today begins Black History Month, and today is actually known as National Freedom Day. This celebrates the signing of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution by Abraham Lincoln back in 1865. The amendment was ultimately ratified on December 18th, 1865, 7 months after the end of the Civil War, thus formally outlawing slavery in the nation. Obviously, our Black brothers and sisters still face incredible challenges and hurdles. So please think about what you can do for the entire community over the course of Black History Month. As an aside, it's also National Baked Alaska Day. But if you want to learn any more about that, I'll just put those details in the chat box. So have a great week, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Steve. All right, without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Leslie Plezak. We have an exciting and interactive program for you today, so I will turn it over to Leslie.
Thanks, Dawn, and thanks everybody for being here. So February was the month of programs that I had to fill, and I'm super excited that we have with us today Captain Joe Hall. He is a 2004 graduate of the Northwest Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. He holds a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree from Southern New Hampshire University with a concentration in law enforcement operations and administration. And he's completed the Police Executive Leadership Academy and is a graduate of the 484th class of Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command. Captain Hall also serves as a certified instructor through the Indiana Law Enforcement Training Board, and he's a crisis negotiator. He's been a member of the Valpo Police Department since 2006 and has served the agency as a canine handler, a field training officer, a patrol sergeant, all of that prior to his appointment for today. So we're excited to have him here. And the way this is going to work, you guys, is it's really a conversation with him. You can't avoid the fact that the police and the changes to policing have been in the news quite a bit over this, through the pandemic and through the summer and more recently, well, frankly, always. And so we're really lucky to have with us Captain Joe Hall. So I'm going to turn it over to him to introduce himself and give us a brief overview of the Valpo Police Department. And then I'll start with a question. And then just like Steve did with the good news, if you have a question, you can either, just unmute yourself and say it. I'll check the chat box and we'll post questions. And we have about 20 to 25 minutes with Captain Hall to talk with him about, and you did say, Captain, that you would be willing to answer all of our questions, right?
To the best of my ability, I will definitely do my best.
So I'll turn it to you.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me. This is my first opportunity to speak to your group. I think I know back in the day of my canine handling days, I went to various groups and meetings. In the last couple of years, I've been doing that as well. But I don't recall meeting with you guys. So thank you for inviting me. I think the introduction that Leslie gave is probably suffice. And I handle a great deal of things for the Valparaiso Police Department. I wear many hats that pretty much involve anything that is support services as far as records management and public information. We are a CLIA accredited agency, which will probably come up in our conversations, I think, with some of the stuff. So I'll hold off on that, but I manage that as well. I handle all of our training. I handle all of our community outreach programs, things of that nature, all of our social media. Pretty much if you've seen it written on one of our social media pages or released something in the paper, unless it's a direct quote from Chief, then a lot of that information comes out of my office. And like I said, there's a lot of administrative duties that fall within my responsibility. So I think as far as an introduction will do. As far as the Valparaiso Police Department goes, I know a lot of the question we get is exactly how big are you? And we are allotted for 58 sworn officers, and that's where we currently stand at 58. Our patrol division, which is our largest division, contains about 40 of our officers. We have our investigative division, which has 5 detectives and a captain over it. The patrol division also has a captain over it. And in the support services that is kind of newly created, actually, within the last year, that's become its own division, and I stepped in to kind of take care of it and manage that. And it entails all those things that we've already mentioned. But that's kind of the breakdown of the structure of our police department. And as you can see, it's a common hierarchy from rank on down, as you would expect. Our shifts in what you would see on the road as a community, we have 4 individual crews that work those patrol shifts. And on each one of those crews, there's about 10 officers, 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and the rest patrolmen. Having said that, what you'll find on the road at any given time is about 6 to 10 of those guys, depending how they're working. And we do work a 12-hour rotating shift where they're 2 on, 2 off, with every other weekend also being either a 3 on or a 3 off for those guys. Numerous specialties come out of that division, and what you see on the road is our canines. We have 5 canines now, including a bomb dog, which was added just within the last year or so. We have bike patrol, we have a drone team. Again, just numerous instructors with various specialty and skills that do not only internal teaching, but also go out to our local academies and participate in those. Our community outreach and our internal programs, again, are numerous, and I think some of those may come up in your questions, and I don't want to eat up a lot of your time, but that's kind of the general structure of the police department. And I'll be glad to answer any of those questions that may come up as well. But again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really enjoy a Q&A atmosphere. I think it gives you an opportunity to directly maybe get something that you want to know, if we can possibly answer it for you, off your chest. And it's more about you than it is me. So with that, if we can start taking some questions.
So I'm going to kick it off for us. And one of the questions I have is, how does the Valparaiso Police Department view its role in our community? And can you define community policing? Because through all the conversation that I've seen over the last year, there's a lot of talk about that. And I'm not sure I completely understand it. And I kind of wonder, like, is our community, well, I'll just let you answer it. How about that?
Sure. And what you'll find with the community policing definition, by any readings or scholarly production, or writings that may take place, is you're going to find about a definition that's different in almost every one of those, what that really means. But the community policing is more just of a policing strategy that really focuses on the relationships with its community members. It really does involve partnerships, in our officers being in our neighborhoods, patrolling our streets, getting to know those people who we often come in contact with. So that's going to look different in every community. So let me take it back into Valpo and kind of what it looks like on our end. It is a strategy that we have clearly adopted. If you can look at our mission statement, if you look into the work that we do in the community, you'll see that first and foremost, the police department sees itself as a partner with our community. We are very community minded with all of the decisions and the processes that we have a tendency to be involved in. We do that through various community outreach programs. We do that through having partnerships with existing structures, organizations such as yours, Porter County Substance Abuse. We have these ongoing dialogues. Our social media content, I know that came up earlier, is a definite, probably newly development that's talked about within the structure of community policing. That social media provides that dialogue with your citizens. It's an open and free environment where people can exchange ideas. We can seek advice and we can be provided with answers and tips to what's going on in our community or concerns about what's going on in our community. We also get to share a little bit about the internal workings of the police department and our individual officers, kind of that human side behind the badges. You'll see some of that on social media. But with our role, one of the things that Chief Allen always says is, we're going to focus on putting the people back into police. And by doing that is, if we're going to have success and we're going to be able to combat crime and have the community that we have, which is a wonderful and fabulous community. We're very lucky to have all that established, but we have to put the people back into the police because we need you to be a part of what we're doing to have that success, for us to be able to go out into our community, for us to go out and stop the things that may be occurring, because all communities do have some level of crime. But they're not going to call us up, unfortunately. The bad guy standing at Lincoln Way in Morgan isn't going to get on his phone and say, hey, I'm about to commit a crime. We need our citizens to be on the lookout and aware just of everything that's going on around, and not be afraid or hesitant to say something doesn't look right. And when something doesn't look right, it usually isn't. And I'm going to go ahead and have the police officers come and check that out. So first and foremost, it is about our community when it comes to the Valparaiso Police Department. It is about being a good partner. And continuing to find ways to do that.
Okay. Do we want to go to Deb's question? Deb, do you want to unmute Deb Wapple and ask your question, or would you like me to do it?
You can read it.
No, now that you're unmuted, you can just ask
Okay.
it.
I was just wondering about the city limits for policing. Where are the boundaries where the city ends and the county begins?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I wish I could tell you it was a square box that we could just outline and that was the end of it, but it's not. It's an incomplete jigsaw puzzle, that goes around the city limits of Valpo. And even with the inside of that big jigsaw puzzle, there's areas that are county patrolled, especially in the Flint Lake area. That area is, if you look at a city map, is going to be white, because the outside of the city is a white jurisdiction, or a color whited, while the city itself is in a kind of a olive yellow color. If you look at the city maps that are everywhere. Best I can probably give you though, is if you're going east, let's use Route 30. If you're going east, you're going to go out to about 400 east. If you're going west, you're going to go just before 250 west on 30, if you're going east to west. And that's good lines. If you're on 130, you're looking kind of like 375, just before those tracks there at 375 on 130, 375 north and 130. If you're going north from there, we go all the way up to Bagata, if anyone's familiar with the subdivision, Bagata that's up there, and all the way to Spectacle, just before Spectacle on Campbell. Parts of the north of Burlington Beach are county, and we can go as far east as about Bart's Road, if you want to kind of imagine that line going to the east on the north end of town. So like I said, I wish I could give you, it's this square from these degrees, but it is literally almost a jigsaw puzzle going in all directions as to what is city. And with that, annexation continues to be a discussion. So we're going to continue to grow and expand upon the areas that we are within our jurisdiction.
How about
Okay.
south of 30?
Let's go to Jim. Jim, do you want to pose your question, Jim Burns?
Yeah, I'm involved with social services at a nonprofit. We work with at-risk families where there's been child abuse and neglect. And you read on the news, there's been an increase in depression and anxiety and suicide attempts, especially in young people. Are you seeing that same increase in Valparaiso?
It's an excellent question. And I know there's always a lot of conversation as to, you know, what is the comparison nationally, as we see so much about that on the news, to what we're experiencing locally. And to say that we haven't experienced any of it, you know, would be incorrect. But what I can say is it's very, very little as an increase as far as anything related to the pandemic and what's going on. I mean, obviously there's going to continue to be some of those things you mentioned occurring, but we're not seeing this overabundance of it or this huge increase in any of our statistical numbers, whether that's crime or mental illness and things like that. But I think that attributes a lot to the resources that we have in our community, that people are able to get to those things without a whole lot of difficulty. And it's through groups like it sounds like you represent that provide those services. And we would be lost without them as a community, as an agency, to be able to provide those resources or direct people to them. So the best answer to your question, we're not seeing an overabundance of an increase or a large numbers of things, but we do have to be conscious and aware of that and making sure we're getting people the help they need.
Thank you.
Sharon, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Captain, are the officers and the squad cars equipped with cameras?
Yes, ma'am. All of our patrol division and our investigations, when they go out, all have at minimum a body worn camera that is going to be turned on in all the incidents. Just within the last 6 months in our patrol fleet, we have also added in-car mounted cameras that are going to operate in that same way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question here. What's the likelihood of an officer or a policeman in Valparaiso getting into an altercation or a situation where it could be life-threatening? What's your statistics on that?
Well, I can only tell you that, knock on wood, it's not something that we're encountering every day. To be able to quantify it, though, I don't want to tell you that it's such a percentage or not a percentage, and then an incident happen where that type of force is brought out or utilized to answer a threat. I can only tell you that we haven't had any of those that I'm aware of in the last, well, I've been with the Valparaiso Police Department for 15 years, and internally in the city, I don't believe we've had any death or life-threatening incidents occur against an officer where an officer would have been indirectly involved in that within the city limits. So to provide you with an exact likelihood or probability, I just don't think we can do, other than to say this. We focus very much now, especially in today's times, but even prior to that, one of the things the Valparaiso Police Department can point to is an excellent training program. We focus on being able to de-escalate a situation without having to go to a use of force option. So with that, we want to use critical thinking, problem solving, and a de-escalation process of just communication to try to work with the situation before it gets to that level. And if this comes up again, our standards through CALIA as an accredited agency require us to do those things when they are feasible. So we try our best to avoid having those type of confrontations. We train for them. Obviously, we have to make sure that we have a high level of preparedness for all situations, but our focus is to do something prior to it getting there, if at all possible.
Captain Hall, just want to thank you and your entire team for everything that you do for the community. Every interaction my family's had with somebody on the police department has just been phenomenal. And my kids always love when your officers go into the classrooms and do what they do. What's the absolute craziest thing you've ever seen on the job?
You know, that is a question we quite often get. So first, let me say thank you for the kind words. Obviously, that is our goal, and our partnership with VCS and our parochial schools, even within the city, amazing, right? We have 3 school resource officers. We are routinely in our elementary schools. We are routinely part of our sporting events that go out to city and so on. We have those things in place. Our breakfast and badges program is something, if you're not aware of, that we go into the elementary schools. since last year we started this program, and have breakfast with the students at every elementary school. We made it to it before pre-COVID, before that struck us last year. We made it to every elementary school and the parochial schools just to have that environment with the kids. Sit down, have a meal with them. It's kind of like a coffee with a cop for kids, but just getting them to see us in a non-enforcement situation, right? We talk about community outreach. We talk about the importance of establishing these relationships prior to having an incident like we had kind of just talked about, because we want everybody to know that our community is important to us. So that's one of the programs that I want to scream at to the highest level to make sure everybody knows, because that is something that worked amazingly. Kids, parents, faculty and staff at the schools, top notch, letting us come in there and do that and just being a part of their day, which was really cool. What was the second part of your question? I got on a tangent there. When we talk community, I get.
No worries. That was awesome. Craziest thing you've ever seen
right.
on the job.
Unfortunately, people who consume too much alcohol have a tendency to do some really weird and disgusting things. So without getting too detailed, you can imagine some of the things that may have happened prior to maybe administering some field sobriety, or while that was going on. People have a tendency to lose track of their bodily fluids in weird places. And I think we'll just, without going too far, I think we'll leave it at that. But that is probably some of the wildest, like you can't believe moments. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of them in my 17 total years of policing.
I think I just saw you in the comments.
I can agree.
So let's go to the question from Doug Busby. Doug, you asked a question about something you observed the other day. Do you want to unmute, Doug? We have to unmute him. Greg, can you do that? Thanks. Okay.
Okay. The other day we were going down 49 within the city, and in the median we had a Valparaiso cruiser and a state police cruiser sitting side by side, no doubt chatting between the cars going on. Let's say I was speeding and they detected this. How do we handle state versus Valparaiso traffic violations on our main roads?
I guess best to answer your question is both that state trooper and the Valparaiso police officer is going to be able to do whatever they see fit in question. And if we talk about jurisdiction as an authority, right, if granted authority, a police officer in the state of Indiana is a police officer everywhere within the state boundary. I could be in Evansville and execute an arrest or write a traffic ticket. I just have to book them into the local court or file the paperwork into the local court. So to determine that as far as state and local, there's not much of a determination. Both of them are going to have the authority to cite you, arrest you, stop you, have a conversation with you, all within the legal way, of course. But there's not a direct competition or confrontation regarding who has authority there. If you were going north and the state trooper was facing north, then I guess he'd probably be the one to pull you over. If you were going south and the Valpo squad was facing south, then he'd probably be the one to pull you over, and both would be well within their right to do so and to take the action that they see fit.
That's good news.
And we work very well with our local troopers that hang out in the area and with our county officers in our neighboring cities. There's a lot of partnership that goes on in policing, which is a good move. It's looking forward for sure.
So let's go to Nick. Nicholas has a question. Nick, if you want to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the question is what's your biggest challenge currently, and how are you addressing it? And I assume the answer will be COVID, but maybe not.
Well, let's go this route because it definitely falls in my purview. And I was actually having a conversation with Chief about this morning, and I know it's probably some of the questions that others may have, and it is COVID. But it's not COVID as in we're unable to recover from the pandemic or we're not be able to stay staffed. It's COVID in the way that we can't do the things that we normally do, right? We've already talked about how community-minded our law enforcement programs are, especially here in Valpo, and where we want to go with those things and continue to improve upon them and expand them and bring others into what we're doing. Well, the thing that we've been missing the most is exactly that in the last 10 to 12 months. We haven't been able to get into our schools. We have not been able to do our coffee with the cops. We had to modify our national night out, which had already been moved and dated, where we were just able to drive through the neighborhoods instead of stop and get out and talk about what's going on in these individual neighborhoods. So we lose part of that connection. And we've worked really hard on our social media to try to still put those things out there, but we are missing that. We offer a Citizens Police Academy for our citizens. We offer a junior police academy for kids that are still of high school age that are looking to get into law enforcement and learn some things about it. We partner with the university on several programs, including an academy and research and prep courses and things like that. And we just haven't been able to get ourselves back out into the community. So one of the things that we are hoping is, where are we going to be focusing kind of like our programs and initiatives on as we move forward? And I know this is something that Leslie and I discussed, it is kind of that return to normalcy of how do we get ourselves back out in the community? And we look forward to being able to do that. All of those things, the academies, the breakfast and badges, the coffee with the cops, just the interaction with our citizens, because it really is just so much of the focus when we talk about how the Valparaiso Police Department operates within the Valparaiso community, and being that partner and being able to put the people back into the things that we're doing and having them be a part of that. So it is COVID, but it's probably, that's maybe from a different angle that we see.
We've had a couple of questions. Jim Berman and Doug Mock both posed questions relating to the heroin problem. And if you could speak to that. And I think, Jim, if you want to jump in, specifically your question, Jim Berman, was, I'm not sure if you want to add your part of the question, Jim.
Yes. Good morning. Sir, my question is, I understand the officers have been trained and carry naloxone in the event of acute overdose. I am a mental health provider and have been for almost 30 years and acutely aware of it. Just curious how the successes of that are to what's the frequency and incidents where police are actually able to intervene on an acute overdose, and what else do you as a force need in support of that?
Okay, it's a great question. I don't think it's the secret it used to be anymore regarding some of the opioid problems that we've had, and I think we're doing a better job of combating that and finding ways to get people into treatment. And thank you for that. If you're in the forefront of that and providing those services, that is by far something we will need continue to have access to. I would say, without giving, I think I can tell you how many naloxone doses that were administered last year by our officers that were in life-saving measures, and I believe that was 9, somewhere in the area of 9 for the calendar year of the end of the end of 2019 through October, September of 2020. So it's not a great ordeal, but we are seeing that to be a very useful tool and a nice service and a life-saving measure that we definitely are able to provide. So that is something, having that kind of in the toolbox of policing has really benefited us, because quite often we're the first ones there. So I think we need to continue to do that. I think one of the things that we're focusing on as we move forward is how do we build upon these programs. And one of the programs that we would like to try to get established is having a social worker on staff, or partnering with social workers, where we can get Perry type programs, if you're familiar with those, which is an assistance program to help people who admit that they do need to get into recovery, help them get into recovery from a police standpoint, with very little questions asked regarding what they're bringing to the table. And we began those conversations. And what we have to be careful of, though, is when we go to look at these programs, it's not about replacing police officers. It's about supplementing them. We have to be able to do both of those things. You can't deplete a workforce and expect to have the high quality of service but we do need to be able to supplement some of these programs to include social work, drug assistance programs, and people like yourself to provide us with the assistance and make us better at what we're doing as well. And that's from a whole training aspect that we've also adopted. I mean, we've got great partnerships with groups that provide us those things. And it's definitely a difference in the last few years, and certainly over my career as we take a different approach to critical thinking and problem solving, and kind of a new way. And I think it's a good thing. Again, it's about forward thinking and bringing that assistance and understanding of the mental illness and things like that you mentioned, and the drug addiction, only makes us better at what we do.
Who else has a question? There's been a couple posed in the chat, but is there anybody who wants to jump in? Okay, so
Leslie,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just a follow up to my question on the drug prevention side. How are we getting the drugs out of our community? What progress are we making there?
Yeah, and that's on a couple of different levels, right? We have to have education, we have to have enforcement, and it's just like anything else. I think it's a battle, and we continue to fight it. But I think we're moving in the right direction. And I would say through enforcement, we get that education and we get that recovery. And then it's how can we sustain it? And I think that's where some of these programs will continue to help us that. So we're on the right path. It's just we got to keep moving forward.
One of the questions posed, I think it was by James, was what are the qualifications to become a police officer?
Okay, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be over the age of 21. You do have to pass a written, for our agency, there is a written and a physical agility testing. The physical agility testing is the state standard for academy exit standards as part of that process. And then we also do backgrounds and interviews and things like that. As far as our recruitment and hiring goes on our end, that's what it is. But for the state requirement is all determined by statute, and we follow that pretty closely.
Okay. And then we also had a question about what, from your perspective, what is the biggest challenge facing Valpo as we are a growing community over, say, the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow, that is an excellent question, because I think it's probably a lot of the things that we talked about, right? How do we continue to develop our programs as an agency? And I can only speak from from a police department standpoint. I can't speak for the entire city, but I think it's a collaborative effort. And I think it's about getting out into our communities and knowing what those challenges are and getting them identified. And I think maybe that's where we have to start. So maybe that's the biggest challenge is I've always kind of taken the approach, if we're going to take on something, if we're going to look into something, we need to be clear on what our objectives are. We need to be clear about what our expectations are and where we're going to go. So I think from a policing standpoint is we need to continue to identify what those are and how we're going to improve upon them. And I think a lot of what that brings out is some of the things that we've already got started and continuing to be a good partner with the citizens of Valparaiso. So as far as challenges, I think it just continues to see how they develop and where they come from, I think, and knowing that is half the fight. And when we talk about policing a little bit, we talk about like this forecasting, right? So we always have to have a 5 and a 10-year plan as we move forward. And I think as long as we don't focus too narrowly on where we're at or where we need to be, we'll continue to grow upon that and we'll be in the right place. But those are the challenges, is being able to identify what is next.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Dawn, I'm not sure how much more time we have. Do we have maybe time for one more question? And I'm not sure why we have a screen share. Is that you?
We are at 1 o'clock, so we could do one more question if it's a quick question.
Anybody? Or is there anything else that you want to share with us, Captain?
Well,
like how can we help you?
Well, I think about the best way that we can be helped with anything is just to be the other side of the eyes for us, right? The other side of the coin. You know, there's a saying out there: if you see something, say something. And I would only echo that. You know your community, you know your little geographical area of your community better than anyone else. So if something seems out of place, out of the norm, lights aren't working, odd cars driving by, weird smells coming from the neighbor's house, you name it, you know, doors not being secured properly all of a sudden, no one knows what's going on around you better than you. So the best thing you can do is to let us know about it. You know, the community, our citizens, really are one of the greatest assets that we have, and we want to continue to develop that, but we have to know about things. So what you can do would be just to continue to partner with us, be informative with us, and allow us to do things like this as well, so we can get the messages out and try to educate and make these connections. I think is a big way of how we're going to continue to move forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm sure I can speak for everyone in our club that we appreciate so much all that the Valparaiso Police Department does to keep our community safe, and, you know, to make it be an awesome place to live. So we'll turn it back over to Dawn.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Captain Hall. We appreciate your willingness for this community dialogue. And like Leslie said, we are grateful and thankful for all you and the officers and the department to keep us safe and protect us and continue to have this be a great community to live in and raise our kids and have our businesses.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the opportunity.
Thank you. And for being here with us today, we are going to donate a children's book to the Valparaiso Public Library in your name. All right, and thank you everyone for making it an interactive program today. We learned a lot, I am sure. Next week, Leslie will have with us Amanda Zelahusky. She will be presenting our program. Tomorrow night is our Rotary chat. It's at 7 p.m. I will send out a reminder, but the Zoom link was in Friday's email. And Deb Wapple, are you still on with us? You had a comment you would like to make before we leave today.
Yes, I'm here. The February newsletter will be out tomorrow, and I'm going to start highlighting some things about our centennial year and some history throughout the years. So this week, look for a little blurb on who is our most recent longest term, our present longest term member of Rotary, and a little bit about that person. So you might try to guess who that is before you see the newsletter tomorrow.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, would you please join me in the four-way test? Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful week and stay safe out there. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.